Hello, and thanks to G2A for sponsoring the channel. Reference link in the description below. It is the catchphrase of the channel, everybody. Voted for by you at home. Some news from me. Two things. Why you probably won't see me post a huge amount in the next 2 weeks. First, I got a new job. Feel free to check out my Twitter if you want to find out some more, but it's a pretty cool job. And secondly, my MBA dissertation is due in about 10 days and I need to finish it. So I'll be doing the giveaway results this weekend once I've processed all of the results. And thank you everyone that filled in the survey on my community page. Once my MBA is handed in on the 5th of August, I will be free from university. So I'll be a lot more free time to actually do stuff. That's why for the last 2 years, to be honest with you guys, YouTube's been a lower priority. Got a job, had kids. I'm doing a part-time master's degree from home. So as you can probably imagine, limited time to actually do videos. But there we go. Let's talk about patch 3.3a though. Of course, I put out a poll today thinking that people didn't know the new champion that was coming. Turns out everyone knew what the new champion was. It's Kassadin. I really wanted it to be Sion, but it is Kassadin that is coming. Very excited about him. He'll be coming out on Friday. When I get time, I'll try and do a guide for him. He's a really, really cool champion. There's also a pool party event coming, obviously a new event. I believe Legendary Queue is releasing some point on Europe in the next 1 or 2 days, and whether it's going to be rolled out in the rest of the regions, I don't know, but Champion Queue should be coming around. Draven is quite strong right now. They are nerfing his spinning axe bonus attack damage ratio. Basically, they reverted some of the changes that they made to him to buff him, and I kind of agree. I think Draven's in a very strong spot right now. Obviously, good Draven players can kind of take over solo queue very easily, and I think this is a good change. The scaling on his spinning axe was pretty nutty, given that you could get 120% scaling very early on. Echo is doing too well in the jungle and not doing well enough in the lane, so they are basically making his passive deal less damage to monsters, so he can't burn through big camps especially as quickly, and they're going to reduce his first ability mana cost. You can spam that a little bit more in the laning phase. Very small changes. We'll have to see what his jungle clear is like. If this significantly impacts his jungle clear, it will make him a slightly worse jungler. You know, right now the jungle is kind of dictated by either you clear the jungle really quickly and you farm a lot and you get a lot of gold, aka Shyvana, or you're good enough to clear camps to get to a point where you can gank heavily, and that's people like Lee Sin, for instance. So people that are sat in between those thresholds are not as strong overall. Jace. So Jace is really good in competitive, right? One of the most picked at the Icons Global Championship, and also, you know, very, very popular in high elo, but apparently he's not very good at lower levels, so they're buffing him. Shock Blast and To the Skies attack damage ratio is going up by 10%. That's a pretty big shift. That's going to deal a significant amount more damage. So that's pretty insane. Jace getting in my opinion, I don't think he's warranted, but of course we have to look at this from the lens of not everybody is high elo, so Jace's going to be, in my opinion, like S tier. Definitely mid, potentially Baron lane, maybe with the shock blast ratio going up, maybe even back in the jungle as well. We'll have to see. So I think Jace's going to be very, very good pick in higher levels of play for sure. He already was. Pyke. Did you guys see that when I was doing that? Hopefully you saw that. Yeah. Pyke. So he's a very hard champion to play. So Pyke, let's put this context first, right? Pyke is a hard champion to actually play. So of course his win rates are going to take a long time, I think, to normalize. They don't think he's strong enough though. They think he's unfortunately a little bit too weak. So he's getting some base health growth. So his base health per level, I believe, is going up. His Gift of the Drowned ones, which is the health storage, when 2 or more champions are nearby, it will be up to 45% of damage taken, which is pretty insane. His regen in fights is going to be pretty good. You can very easily dive in and out of fights and regen a huge amount with your second ability, so he's going to get more regen in his back pocket. His Phantom Undertow is going to deal 25% damage to minions or monsters. Wait a second. Okay, so he's actually clearing, they're actually reducing his ability to clear jungle camps and minions in the laning phase. Now on PC, Phantom Undertow doesn't actually do any damage to, I believe, minions in the lane. So this is going to, I mean, if you were playing Pyke jungle, this is probably going to significantly impact your Pyke jungle clear. And also will obviously impact his wave clearing ability a decent amount. But it's a very small nerf considering that this was a niche part of his kit anyway, and not many people were playing Pyke jungle, if I'm honest with you. Frankly, he's mostly being played in support. Skill description has been modified to provide better for clarification on the cut granted to Pyke on his allies. That's just a skill change. So basically, he's getting more health per level, naturally, and that's good because Pyke doesn't get health from any other source. So giving him base health growth is a huge buff because he doesn't get health from other sources. And they're also giving him the ability to regen way more, which is nice. Renekton. Apparently been struggling. I wouldn't say that, personally. I think Renekton's pretty okay. I wouldn't say he's OP, but I'd say he's pretty okay. Ptolemaic, healing bonus attack damage ratio per enemy hit up to 10%. And Ruthless Predator, base damage per strike going all the way up to 55 per strike in the late game. Now, this is the ability that you generally tend to max last, so you won't see that effect for the rest of the game. Normal total base damage is going up by a decent chunk, and enhanced base damage increase is going up. Specifically, the enhanced base damage increase at level 2. So his level 1 is not going to be affected, which is good because if they affected his level 1, his all-in potential at level 2 in the laning phase would go up, which is something that Renekton already excels at. So, you know, given that you don't generally tend to max Ruthless Predator until your last ability, you probably won't start seeing the impact of this until what, like a level 11 or 12, something like that. So not a huge shift, I would say, in terms of his laning potential. Still think it's better to max his third ability before Ruthless Predator. Senna has been too good, and I would say definitely in competitive and maybe even across ranked as well. I think she's one of those champions that supports love playing because she's actually fun to play. Some supports, like enchanters, just aren't that fun to play. We're cutting back her ability to deal sustained damage in the later stages of the game and her power in short trades to limit her ability to masquerade as a full crit carry without building any attack speed or crit. Basically, her attack speed growth is going down by a whole 1%, and that's essentially to say that your ability to convert attack speed into crit is going to be harder. And the missed trigger damage is coming down by 0.4%, but a whole 4% at level 10, which is a pretty decent chunk of current health that's going to get obliterated from her passive. Pretty big nerf to Senna. Still think she's playable, though. Absolutely still think she's playable, but that is a pretty big nerf to Senna. So it feels bad to be Senna players, honestly. And she was already she was very good in competitive, but she was already in like an okay spot, I think. I don't think she was like super OP. She was definitely I think she only worked in certain lane combinations and in certain team comps, but hey, look, Riot has the internal data to work with. Clearly they felt that Senna was way too overpowered. And yeah, this is some pretty hefty nerfs to Senna. Again, though, still think she's playable, and to be completely frank with you, I will still be playing her because she's just fun to play. Just one of those champions. I love collecting souls. It's just fun. And it's far more satisfying than collecting Thresh souls, for instance, because you actually have to do something. But yeah, there we go. The champion ultimate cooldowns favored Shen more than expected, making him one of the more powerful champions on the Rift. We're reducing his overall dueling potential. So, Key Barrier, which is his passive, is going down by a small amount, 9 across the board. Not a huge amount, if I'm honest with you. Enhanced maximum health ratio on his Key Assault, which means the one where you have to pull the sword through the enemy, is going down by 0.5%. Look, Shen is probably one of the best level 1 and level 2 duelists in the Baron lane. Very hard to out-trade him when he's got, like, the ability to chunk 15% of your maximum health just through 3 auto attacks. But look, you know, I don't think this is going to massively impact Shen overall. Like, you know, realistically, you pick Shen for cross-map ability, and, you know, he's still going to have his place, right? Just because they're cutting a bit of shielding and a bit of max health shred doesn't mean he's suddenly going to become unplayable. He'll still be fine. Apparently, Sona system changes have been extremely favorable. So we're lowering the volume on some of her, okay, yeah, puns. Her shielding is coming down by 30 at max rank, and her basic attack ability cooldown reduction is coming down by 10% on crescendo in the late game. But the 30 base shield knockoff of Aria Perseverance is pretty insane. I said that word awfully the first time. But that's a pretty hefty chunk of shielding that's coming away. So that's a decent nerf to Sona. But, you know, frankly, when you have like harmonic echoes up, things like that, like you're still getting a huge amount of healing, you know, onto your allies. So, you know, Sona will still be able to scale well. And the item set that she's got right now favors her. And I think that's fine. So, Wish is getting a nerf, but they're increasing the AP scaling. You know, the reason they're increasing the AP scaling is because ultimately to make Soraka playable, you kind of need Warmogs in her kit. So they're basically saying, fair enough, you can build Warmogs, but you're going to need to build some AP afterwards to make up the AP scaling ratio differences that we're gonna apply to Wish. Look, Soraka, I think definitely playable still, definitely works in certain comps. I've played a lot of like hyper carry protect comps with Soraka. And, you know, 50 base health in the late game on Wish, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. Soraka's still going to be fine. I think before I saw this, they'd actually made a change to her healing, a second ability that might have got pulled. I don't know. But ultimately, this is fine. And I don't think the fact that her third upgrade of her ultimate is getting nerfed by 50 ability power or 50 base healing in the late game, it's not going to be huge. It's not going to be a deal breaker. You can recoup that through the ability power ratio increase. And by the time that you're getting to your third ability upgrade anyway, you're usually stacking some AP in your kit, you know. And also, you know, if you're building AP as part of your first or second item alongside Warmogs, usually we see Ardent into Warmogs, right? If you're building Ardent, you're going to get some AP scaling benefit from that 5% increase ratio in the early game, right? So your early game heal is actually going to be slightly better, because you're getting an extra 5% scaling ratio on it. It's only when you start to upgrade it that you're going to need the more AP to make up for it. So technically, it's kind of a buff for like level 5 era Soraka, first or second objective fights, right? Kind of a buff. There we go. Yasuo's ability to take fast trades in the laning phase and shrug off chip damage. Yeah, I actually find this is quite obnoxious on Yasuo, his ability to essentially just absorb an entire trade for free in the early game. But ultimately, they're not changing his early game shielding. They're only knocking off 45 in the late game. 45 in the late game is pretty decent, but like he's still going to be able to stack and take pretty much absorb any single trade in the laning phase. But they're reducing the shield duration to 1.5 seconds, so you can have a slightly easier window to go for when you're looking to trade with Yasuo. Not going to change Yasuo's position personally. I think small change, small nerf, but Yasuo's still going to hold his current position in the meta. Black Cleaver has solid all-round stats, but it's purchased too frequently, and we don't like that. So they're basically changing it so that it goes from 25% armor pen or armor reduction over 5 stacks to 24% over 6 stacks. 1% overall armor reduction nerf, and you have to stack it one more time. So slight nerf, but honestly, I don't suddenly think this is going to make Black Cleaver unplayable. Frankly, the armor shred is nice, but what Black Cleaver is so good at is just getting some good raw stats for value. Like the cost is low, gives you great stats, and this is not, in my opinion, going to change Black Cleaver's position. I think people are still going to build Black Cleaver in exactly the same way they always have done. I don't think this change is the one that's going to stop people playing this or even consider other options, because ultimately, what else fills the niche that Black Cleaver offers? Basically nothing. Death Dance, yes, getting a nerf. This was way too OP, especially versus hard physical comps. 10% maximum health heal. Still a good heal, don't get me wrong. You're still going to build this into heavy physical comps, but it just won't be as obnoxious to play against now. So, you know, frankly, you're still building Death Dance when you always built Death Dance, but it's just going to be less obnoxious to have to deal with. Divine Sunderer, apparently too OP, getting a 150 gold buff in terms of combine cost. And it's bringing it in line with other Sheen-based items like Trinity Force. Look, ultimately, 150 gold is a pretty decent chunk of money, but Divine Sunderer still has that niche of being really, really good for sustained champions, especially against high HP targets. So, you know, I think what will now be maybe more open in the meta is if you're playing like a Jax or a Fiora, you might say, okay, am I going Triforce or am I going Divine Sunderer? Maybe I make a more informed decision based on who I'm playing up against and which one's going to get me more value. But ultimately, gold increases are just a more annoying to deal with rather than kind of completely obliterating your item choice. Because again, every item fills a niche, fills a purpose, right? Every item has a role. And there are no items that do the same thing. So ultimately, if you have someone that just works way too well with Divine Sunderer that you can't really can't really go for any other item, then you kind of have to go for Divine Sunderer, regardless of the cost increase. By the way, no Shyvana changes, no Fiora changes, who has also been cropping up as a bit of annoyance. We've got another patch of annoying Shyvana jungles to deal with. Staff of Flowing Water. It's apparently too good for champions that can keep that buff going. So the buff duration is going up to help champions that can't keep that buff going. But the ability haste granted by buff is going down by a small amount. So it hopefully makes Staff of Flowing Water a bit more accessible for the longer cooldown champions. Scorch. See, I quite like Scorch, but I do agree it's a little underpowered. So they're going to small increase to Scorch's power in the laning phase, which I think is pretty cool. Loads of skins, icons, and boom, that's the that's the stuff. Guys, apparently, I need to tell you to turn my notification bell on because I don't post that frequently. So, if you want to, if you get this far in the patch notes and you want to just get notified when my content's going out, please hit the notification bell and hit the sub button. That would be amazing. Love you guys. See you soon.